So thanks everyone. Those of you who have joined thus far, thank you for joining us as well. And Raven, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we could just kind of jump right into your presentation.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Raven Odom, and I serve at the Urban Core Collective within our Health Justice and Civic Engagement department. So excited to be here with y'all today to share some information about redistricting. And I'll go ahead and share my screen to get the presentation up, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Oh, I need the ability to share my screen, it looks like.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a host.
Thank you. Can you all see the slides? You want to give me a thumbs up?
We can see it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, y'all. So we will jump into it. Like I said, I'm here today to talk a little bit about the redistricting process that's happening here in Michigan. Do want to acknowledge that some of the content in the presentation was adopted from Michigan's nonprofit association and the organization Voters Not Politicians. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about what redistricting is and why it matters, a little bit about Michigan's Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, communities of interest, and then opportunities for you all to get involved in the redistricting process. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to gauge folks' level of familiarity with the topic of redistricting. So if you're like, redistricting, I've never even heard of it before, feel free to, you might rate yourself closer to a 1. If you're like, step aside, Raven, I could host this presentation, you might rate yourself closer to a 10. So feel free in the chat to drop how you rate yourself between 1 and 10 in terms of your familiarity with the topic. Okay, I see 5, 4, 5. Feel free to continue putting your responses in the chat. Okay. It seems like folks around the 5-ish area. And I don't consider myself an expert by any means. So if folks have other information that they want to share as we go throughout the presentation, please, by all means, feel free to either unmute yourself or comment additional information that you'd like to share. My goal is that by the end of the presentation, folks will maybe go up even 1 point. So if you started out as a 4, by the time I finish today, hopefully you are a 5 and you know a little bit more about the process. All right, so let's get into it. What is redistricting and why does it matter? So to understand redistricting, I think it's helpful to start with first, what is a district? Districts are clearly defined geographic areas and they segment voters, and then voters then elect a public official to represent them as a group. Different legislative bodies have a different number of people that are allocated for particular districts, but each legislative body has a district for every seat. And then the goal is for those districts to have about the same number of people. All right, so we'll have some low stakes trivia questions throughout the presentation too, just for y'all to engage. And here's the first one. How often do you think the redistricting process happens? So is it A, every 4 years, B, every 5 years, C, every 10 years, or D, every 20 years? Feel free to drop your guesses in the chat. Okay, I see C, A, D. Any other guesses? Okay, the correct answer is actually C, every 10 years, and let me tell you why. So redistricting is actually connected to the census, and the census is conducted every 10 years. The census serves as like the main, one of the main data sources or inputs for the redistricting process. So with redistricting, the goal is to redraw district boundaries to guarantee equal voter representation. And as we know, people move, people pass away, people are born. So they use the census data to help determine how the population has shifted in different areas. As you can see in the image on the left-hand side, on one district boundary, you have 12 people. On one side of the district boundary, you have 12 people. On the other side, you have 18 people. The goal would be then to redistrict, so you get to the image on the right-hand side where you have 15 people on each side, so there's equal number of voters or equal voter representation. So with the process, Michigan's redistricting process, they'll be drawing or redistricting for these current districts, our state house districts, our state senate districts, and our congressional districts. As you can, these are what the current districts look like. So here's some maps to show the current districts. We have 110 state house districts, 38 state senate districts, and 14 congressional districts. Due to population shifts though, I believe it's confirmed now that Michigan will actually lose a seat in the US House of Representatives. So we'll actually have 13 congressional districts as the maps are redrawn. And underneath each map, you can see the number of people the approximate number of people that are represented in each district based on the size or the number of the districts. So bringing it closer to home. So not just looking at the state of Michigan as a whole, but let's look at our districts and who our current reps are. So for the US House of Representatives, the Kent County, Grand Rapids areas were connected to District 2 and District 3 are housed within those districts. And here's our rep, Bill Heisinger for District 2 and Peter Meyer for District 3. When we look at State House, Grand Rapids is primarily in District 75 here and District 76 in the blue here. So Dave LeGrand is our rep at District 75 and Rachel Hood is the rep for District 76. And you can see the reps for the surrounding areas as well. And then finally, when we look at State Senate, the rep for the 26th district is Eric Nesbitt, 29th district, Winnie Brinks, and then the 28th district, that seat is currently vacant, but it was formerly held by Peter McGregor. We'll be voting to fill that seat later this year. But just to bring it closer to home and give you a sense of, or help you to see who our current reps are in the area. All right, so another fun fact trivia question for y'all. How many of the representatives from Michigan's 75th district have been Black? So how many Black representatives have we had in the 75th district? And that's the district here in pink that Dave LeGrand currently represents. So is it A, there's been 0 Black representatives, B, 1 Black rep, C, 3, or D, 5? Drop your guesses in the chat, please. See, A. Any other guesses? Okay, so B1. Let's see, the correct answer is actually B1. And his name was Robert Dean. He was from Grand Rapids and served from 2007 to 2010, so 2 terms in the State House. We've actually had 0 Black representatives for House District 76 or 77, and 0 Black reps for District 26 or 28. There was a Black representative, Bill Hardeman, for Senate District 29. He served 4 terms from 2003 to 2010 in the state Senate. So I wanted to, again, bring it close to home, show you who our current reps are and who some have been in the past. But as you can imagine, the redistricting process can be controversial because there's power that's involved. There are, elected officials who are at play. And before 2021, whatever political party was in charge in that year or following the US Census, they could manipulate the process to give their candidates an advantage. So drawing maps to ensure that their political party had an advantage when election time came around. And the manipulation of that process is known as gerrymandering. And gerrymandering is harmful. It helps, again, like I said, to give favor to one political party over the other. It makes races less competitive, more often than not hurts communities of color and makes people feel like their voices or their votes don't matter. And Michigan voters recognize the damage of political gerrymandering and decided to do something about it. And so thinking about the redistricting process is important to consider because that impacts representation for our community. And there's a lot at stake with that. So having fair districts helps return power to the people. The goal is for then that to lead to better representation in Congress and the state legislature. Hopefully we then have elected officials who we feel care about our needs or will advocate for us in both Congress and the state legislature. And then ultimately lead to better programs and services that impact our daily lives. Again, there, fair elections are at stake. Our voice in Lansing and DC is at stake, but also local resources and policies that affect us on an everyday basis, from education to healthcare, immigration, policing, the environment, transportation, and a host of other factors. Like I said before, voters in Michigan recognize the need to put an end to political gerrymandering. And in the November 2018 general election, voters decided to put an end to that by amending the Michigan Constitution. And that vote then led to the formation of Michigan's Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. So it's a mouthful, so I'm gonna refer to it from here on out as the ICRC. So what is the ICRC? It's an independent, bipartisan, and nonpartisan commission in Michigan that's responsible for redrawing district maps for, again, the state house, the state senate, and our congressional districts. And they're required by law to carry out an open, transparent, and public process. There's some strict criteria they have to follow when drawing maps that I'll share in a moment. And they use data from the US Census and citizen input to draw new district lines. And the goal is to do that by November 1st. That timeline may be pushed back a little bit given some delays with getting the census data, but that was their original timeline. Pausing for a comment in the chat. Okay, got it. Yes, I do talk fast, so please, if I'm moving fast, let me know and I'll try to slow it down. Okay, we're back at it with another question for y'all. So what do you think is the composition of Michigan's Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission as it relates to political party affiliation? Are there A, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 3 independents? B, 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans? C, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents? Or D, 9 independents? What do you think? Feel free to drop your guesses in the chat. Okay, I see A. Any other guesses? Okay. Other guesses? Okay, let's see what the answer is. The correct answer is actually C. So 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents, or folks who don't affiliate with either major political party. So this is the breakdown of the commission in terms of political party affiliation, but some other helpful demographics to share. So in terms of race and ethnicity, 10 of the commissioners are white, 2 are Black or African American, and 1 is Middle Eastern. And in terms of age breakdown, 3 are between 28 to 34 years of age, 5 between 48 to 55 years of age, and 5 between 68 to 74 years of age. 7 of the commissioners identify as female and 6 identify as male. And then on the right-hand side, you can see where the commissioners are from, the city that they're from. There are 2 from Detroit and then 1 from each of the other cities listed below. As you can see, we don't have a commissioner who's from Grand Rapids. Whether we had a commissioner from Grand Rapids or not, I think it's really important for us to be involved in the process, but some might argue, especially given the fact that we don't have a commissioner who's from Grand Rapids, it's really important for us to engage with the commission and let them know about our community and how we feel the new maps should be drawn. Okay, I mentioned before that, these 13 randomly selected Michiganders, they can't just draw maps based, willy-nilly based on what they want it to be. There's some strict criteria that they must follow. And the criteria is listed here in order of importance or in order of priority. So 1, they have to comply with federal law concerning population equality and the Voting Rights Act. The districts must be contiguous, so you can't draw, there's a piece of the district here and then another piece all the way over here and they don't connect. They have to be connected or contiguous. The district should reflect the state's diverse populations and communities of interest. I'll talk a bit more about communities of interest in a moment. They can't provide a disproportionate advantage to either or any political party. They can't favor or disfavor any incumbent elected official or candidate. They should reflect consideration of county, city, and township boundaries. And then finally, they should be reasonably compact. So, okay, what are communities of interest? What does that mean? So communities of interest are groups of individuals who share common bonds, and that bond or those ties might be across a myriad of factors or issues. So it could be related to the economy in your area. There might be ethnic and cultural ties or historical ties. Some examples, folks might be really committed to the quality of neighborhood schools in their area, or maybe they're a group of folks who have been impacted by environmental justice in their area, or they receive their services at a particular institution in the area and they really want to make sure that's protected, or there's an elected official who will ensure that there's funding for that. So folks can be connected around a host of different issues or topics. In Michigan's Constitution, communities of interest are defined in saying, communities of interest may include, but shall not be limited to, populations that share cultural or historical characteristics or economic interests. Communities of interest do not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So again, like I mentioned, folks might be connected around a shared economy in their area, or folks are employed at a particular institution, or there's a major employer in the area. There might also be shared cultural or historical ties for historic interests. For example, for the Hispanic population in Detroit, maybe an interest for that community is ensuring that there's more funding for English as a second language courses in their school system. Though, voters in that area might then consider that a community of interest in that area. Other things to consider for communities of interest: where are places that people gather or socialize, or where are some central places that folks go to receive services? Another example, looking at the Arab American community in the Dearborn area, some concerns that they've pushed for a while is working towards having a multicultural integration budget, mental health funding, policies around air pollution, receiving underserved community designation, and support for K through 12 education. I mean, they've been pushing for these things, but given their representation, there hasn't been traction often. So how might an elected official who understands the community, the needs and concerns of that community, is willing to advocate for them, both in the state legislature, how might, using $28 million budget from 2010 or future years, how might then that impact this Arab American community's ability to see traction in some of these areas, things that they feel are important and have been advocating for? So Professor Hayek from Wayne State University took a look at the Michigan House districts, and this is the Grand Rapids area. You see District 75 here in pink and District 76 here in blue, and looked at the breakdown of the different racial ethnic groups in that area, in those districts. So in District 75, about 27% of the population in that district is Black or African American. And about 17% of the population in District 76 is Black or African American. And as you can see, that population is split across those two districts. What would it look like then if that community was combined into one district? I mean, there's pros and cons if you look at it either way, in terms of consolidating that power and our ability to, elect someone who we feel really understands our needs and is able to push for those, versus having that population split across different districts. And again, looking at State House, he also added Latinx population. And see here that it's spread out again, or looking at how it's spread out across District 75 and 77. Again, how might working the Black and Latinx community, what are our shared concerns, and how might we work together to then be a community of interest, or discuss those shared interests, and ensuring that we have elected officials who represent our needs. So I want you to, you don't have to respond, but something to consider: what issues are important to you and in your community? Are there some issues that you feel have been underrepresented or not represented at all by elected officials? Some things that, as we begin or are engaged in this redistricting process, are there things that you really feel we need elected officials who will advocate and push for? And how might you build a community of interest around that? Or maybe there's a community of interest that already exists around that particular topic or issue. Again, things at stake: a lot of local resources and policies that impact our everyday life. So I've been talking a lot. Hopefully you were able to absorb some of the information, but I want to close out the presentation with sharing, how can you be involved? Like, okay, Raven, you shared there's a lot at stake, but what can I do to influence the process and advocate for my community? So I want to start by sharing a big picture overview or timeline of the Redistricting Commission and their process. So earlier this year and even up until July, they'll be engaging in their first round of public hearings and deliberations across the state. They'll actually be in Grand Rapids in July, and I'll share more information about that in a moment. They will release the goal is for them to release preliminary maps in August, and then they'll finalize those maps after community input in mid-September. And from mid-September to the end of October, there'll be another round of public hearings and some additional community input to provide input on those maps. They'll finalize those maps, and then, or the goal is to finalize those maps on November 1st. That timeline, like I said before, may be adjusted. And then at the end of this year, those maps will go into effect. And, you know, in 2022, we'll be then using those maps for future elections. Those maps will be in effect for about, for a decade. So how can you get involved? What can you do to influence the process? You can attend public hearings, you can work on community maps, submit those maps to the commission. And as I mentioned, there'll be 2 rounds at least of public hearings, one that's happening in July, and then they'll be back again in Grand Rapids after maps have been drafted. So the commission will be in Grand Rapids on July 1st at 5 p.m. at the DeVos Place for the public hearing here in Grand Rapids. There's the opportunity you can attend remotely or in person. You can tune in via their YouTube page or their Facebook page. And I can share those links with the NAACP team or drop those in the chat after I stop sharing my screen. But we really encourage folks to provide public comment during the public hearings to allow the commission opportunity to hear from you. If you want to do that remotely, there's a link where you would register online, and then you receive another link that you have to sign up, where you have to sign up by 12 p.m. the day of the hearing if you want to provide public comment remotely, or you could do that in person. So you show up to DeVos Place and then sign up at their welcome table indicating that you want to provide public comment. A helpful tool if you're part of an organization or a group, maybe you're already thinking of your community of interest, is to put together a script, like, you know, that you can share with folks as they provide public comment, or if they want to provide public comment. So another way to be engaged in the process is not just providing public comment, but actually submitting maps. Like, you can, depict, this is my community of interest, or this is where I feel the state house districts or state senate districts or congressional districts should be drawn. There's a link here. Again, I'll make sure I share all of these links, but there's a tool, a portal where you can go and you can actually see maps that other community members have submitted. And we really encourage folks to provide comments. So you can go in, look at a map. Actually, I feel like they split my community up. And like, I don't feel like we're represented at all here. Or I think actually this is a really good map. I feel like they really capture our communities of interest. So you can provide comments. We really encourage folks to do that via the online portal. And the commissioners can see the map submitted here as well. So there's a tool that you can use. If you're like me, I'd never drawn maps before. So if you're new to the process, don't worry. There are some resources for us. So District R is a free tool, and that's there's more information about it in that portal. But it allows you to go in, it's districtr.org is the website. And I'll give you a little preview here. So you go in, it allows you to zoom in to, the area or areas that you want to focus on. And you highlight, you go in, there's a little, fill in different precincts. And then it'll allow you to get more information. So as you continue, if you go in and highlight areas, you can see, okay, what's the voting age population by race, the breakdown for these areas that I've highlighted? What's the partisan balance in this area? Election details. So it allows you to see some things that are relevant for the redistricting process. And like I said, if you're like me and you've never used mapping software before, there is hope. So they're actually offering some workshops. There's one tomorrow that I signed up to attend, and then there's 2 other sessions later this month if you want to sign up. So it's a workshop to help you learn how to use the tool, and they'll walk you through the steps. They also offer study halls. So I guess if you have small groups or want to engage one-on-one to work on your map, you can participate in one of their study halls as well. Other tools, if you don't want to use District R, you feel there's other tools that maybe you like better. One example is Representable, and another is Dave's Redistricting app. So some other tools that you might consider using to draw maps and to submit them. I will share too that the Urban Core Collective, we're working on curating some maps that we want to get community input on. So we'll be sharing those and hope to gather community input on the maps as well. So other ways to stay engaged in the process, you can go to the commission's website, michigan.gov/MICRC, and stay up to date. They have like their meeting minutes there. I think you can also, you can also watch recordings from their meetings. Again, encouraging you to give public comment, either via email, doing that, or in person. And then following them on social media can be helpful as well to stay up to date on what's happening. And I'll leave you with this quote from a group that released a publication this year saying, "The maps drawn beginning in 2021 will determine the allocation of political party power and representation at every level of government across the nation for at least the next 10 years. So it's not just, oh, we're engaging in this process for 1 year, come out and influence the process, but no, the districts that are drawn are going to impact political party for the next 10 years until we engage in that redistricting process again. So really encourage folks to get involved. I know that was a lot. I tried to pare it down and share the really important or pertinent information, but I'm happy to pause if you have questions, and always happy to engage offline, or if you want to email me or call me, happy to chat outside of this as well. But I'll stop sharing my screen and take time for questions if that's okay.
Thank you, Raven. Good information. It's a lot going on here with this, but very, very critical that we pay attention to what's happening, and that we attend the commission meetings here. It will be at the Boss Place. I attended again the one in Kalamazoo a few weeks back, which was at Wing Stadium. And there were not a whole lot of people that attended, but again, definitely a lot of folks with their personal interests who made public comment at the hearing. So yeah, any questions? Comments? You did such an incredible job, Raven.
Thank you. Sorry if I was talking really fast. I'm like,
yeah, let me say this. It was a lot of information where I guess most people are just trying to just digest it.
Yeah.
So you did a good job. It's a lot of good information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess the next step is that, we just got to be involved, get engaged.
Yeah. And teach people. I think we're looking at starting doing probably a live stream on this topic. And so looking at, we have some commitment from I think the legal team at the NAACP national office, and then some other folks across the state that have agreed to be a part of those live streams. But again, as a mentor of mine always told me, the mother of skills, the repetition is a mother of skill, right? Yeah. So you just got to keep information out, repeating in front of people, and making sure that we get engaged in the process.
Yeah, really important, and all that it can impact. I think super important. I have, if it's okay to share a link, in case folks want to stay engaged, we're if they want to add their name or email address as we create our maps, if folks want to provide input on that, it's just a Google form in case folks want to stay connected with us in that way. But again, no pressure if folks decide to engage in other ways.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Raven, we had our quarterly NAACP state conference quarterly meeting this past weekend. And I know Dr. Reverend Anthony, who's the president of the Detroit branch, he didn't confirm, but he had mentioned that there was a strong potential that we would lose a seat on the east side of the state. And he was saying either Rashida Tlaib or Brenda Lawrence. So I don't know. So you saying, has that been confirmed, or they're still going through the process? But
yeah, to my knowledge, or from my understanding, we did lose a seat. So given like population shifts, we're instead of 14 seats for in the US House of Representatives will now have 13. Now, how they draw the map, yeah, who's impacted or how they, redraw the lines and whose seat is at stake. I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with that part of it, but I do believe it's confirmed that we will lose a seat.
Yep, it did. This is Kareem. I'm just confirming. Yeah, we did lose a seat. I think that was derived not necessarily from the redistricting piece, but from the that came.
Yeah. So I guess in this process,
Question, I'm sorry, Cleve, real quick, Raven. I was wondering, I don't know if you all already have something like this out, but will we have the ability to edit today's live stream? We recorded it, and can we put this out as kind of informational on our platform so others can watch the recording?
But yep, on my end, that by all means, you're welcome to do that. And like I said, I'll make sure I get you all the links, some of the links and things that I mentioned too. I can share those in a follow-up email. So you have those if you want to share those as well.
awesome. So great information. Raven, we'll circle back with you as well. I think there are a lot of things that we can partner on. And we already, we partner definitely with UCC on a number of other things, but great information. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here.